Picking up chapter 24, part 2, part 4 of the book God dictated to me, as he dictated the Torah to Moses, dictated the books of the prophets to each individual prophet. David may well have written the 3 books he's in, King David. And any one of them could have also done the writings, chronicles, etc. God's book. And he didn't write the New Testament. You won't find the kind of lies and deceit in his book that they have. Primarily from Jesus Christ himself. A liar, not unblemished. No Gentiles forgiven of any sins from a human sacrifice. God doesn't accept human sacrifices. He forgives sins by his written word. We have a new covenant here today, this day of the Lord. The covenant of sin forgiveness of Jeremiah 31. It's a repeat story. He's done it before. He did it for the 13 tribes that returned to Judah, Jerusalem, to build the second temple. All 13. In Isaiah, he forgives them of their sins. And they built the second temple. Well, they're about to be a holy seed again and build the third temple. No Messianic era is going to get in the way, because one's never going to occur. It's a false teaching. No world exaltation. It's a false teaching. It's not in the Hebrew Bible. The world's not going to speak Hebrew. Bad interpretation by Rambam and teaching. There will still be pain in the world. Okay, picking up where I left off in part 3 of chapter 24. The suffering of the Jewish people in this world is not for the benefit of mankind. It is for God and the Jewish people, whom God purges of sin for their suffering and creates a heaven just for the Jewish people. God returns for vengeance. And what is the teaching? Moshiach will perfect the world and bring world peace. Not going to happen. And no man could do that. No country can do that. God returns for vengeance. Passes the cup of his wrath to Christianity. Has a reckoning with the shepherds, the rabbis of the Jewish people. And appoints his servant and shepherd David to tend and rule among the flock, among them. No kingdom. God knew Israel was going to be a democratic state. Rambam just made that up. It's apparently what religious people do. They're like storytellers. What does my flock want to hear? Because I'm going to give it to them. World exaltation is one of them. All the kings of the nations will bow down to us and say they've been wrong about their gods and disavow them all along. And that the Jewish people, the God of Israel, is the only God. All right. Well, God's not going to do it in his power. He's never done anything like that. He's not going to change the minds of the world. Jews for Judaism's commentary on Isaiah 53:10. If I can suffer through another one of these. God. I didn't realize how bad it was. And I typed this. And the Lord desired to crush and afflict him. If his soul would acknowledge guilt, he would see offspring and live long days, and the purposes of God would succeed through his hand. I don't even like the verse. I think that's a bad translation. This soul. Your soul can't do anything. Your soul is the DNA of your spirit, which together combined make a person. If soul is thought to mean itself, okay. But even then, if you say it's itself, and why is the Lord desire to crush and afflict all the Jewish people gathered as one man Israel? They're usually doing good things. The first time it happened, they accepted his first covenant, his new covenant. And in the second, they're in Jerusalem, the 13 tribes out of exile, happily building his second temple. Why did he desire to crush and afflict them? So, but if all the Jewish people as one man would acknowledge guilt, he would see offspring and live long days, and the purpose of God would succeed through his hand. His purpose of God is to go to his temple. Go build it, save me the trouble. Or maybe this will be the impetus for you to do it. It only avoids utter destruction to the land. Build it, never defeat it, dispersed again, according to the covenant of friendship. And it's in Jeremiah 31. Don't build it, utter destruction will come to the land of Israel someday. Okay, here's For Judaism commentary on that. At this point, the prophetic narrator, he's prophetic. This is Isaiah. This is Isaiah speaking in that verse about the righteous servant. God speaks again in 11 and 12. He was the speaker of 52, 13 through 15. The witnesses, verses 1 through 6 in quotes. Then Isaiah picks up 7 through 10, and then God 11 and 12. I don't know anything about Isaiah being prophetic. At this point, it sounds like y'all think y'all are. Maybe you believe in seers, people who can see the future. Sounds like y'all see in the future. Well, you say it like it's a given. The kings of the earth are going to make a spiritual assessment and decide they've been wrong all along. It was their wickedness and not that of the Jewish people. See parts 1, 2, and 3 of chapter 24. The prophetic narrator moves away from the voices of the shocked onlookers. I thought the kings were silenced. That's what it says in 52. I believe 14. Could be 15. And gives us his own perspective of the suffering of the servant. Well, they got that right. It's Isaiah, but why is he all of a sudden prophetic? The emphasis changes. You know, God told him what to write. That's what prophecy is. God can figure it out. He's not a seer. He doesn't see the future. He just knows what's going to happen next. Every second of every day of the entirety of humanity until humanity is no more. The emphasis changes according to the spiritual needs of the respective speakers. Could be something. I'm kidding. Spiritual needs of the witnesses, they did. That's the name to be made righteous. I was one of them. God chose me anyway. He decided to kill me. There is, although he just about did many times. He exposed me to death 4 times. There isn't much spiritual benefit to be gained by focusing on the guilt of others. It is for this reason that the kings of nations focus on their own guilt. He's not a good prophet. He's not a good seer. He thinks that's going to happen. As it relates to the suffering of the servant. Not everybody thinks about the Jewish people all the time, by the way. Much less kings of nations, especially in China. 1/3 of the population of the earth. And for this same reason, the focus shifts to the guilt of the servant when addressing the servant. I guess that's the Jewish people. How come they're never the righteous servant? After all, the audience of the prophet is the people of Israel, primarily, but they're not the only ones that read it. The prophet tells us, Isaiah, that God desired to afflict the servant. The righteous servant in final refinement. Oh, okay, they have to say this, huh? The purpose of Israel's suffering from Israel's perspective is to refine them. A true statement. Amazing. As a loving father rebukes his son, so does God put Israel through the crucible of exile. Okay? Suffering makes you stronger. Y'all wouldn't listen to me or my prophets. They would. Still don't. In order for the suffering to accomplish its purpose, the servant needs to acknowledge and to recognize his own guilt. No created being is free of guilt, and by acknowledging guilt, we come closer to God's truth. Isaiah, Daniel, Ezra, and Nehemiah were all righteous people, yet they all acknowledge their own guilt, together with the sins of the nation. Now he cites a bunch of books. I'm not going to, you can read the book together. The prophet goes on to tell us the reward. Because every time I say the prophet, he has me thank God. Because God's the one that told me to write that down. God goes on to tell us the reward that the servant will experience as a result of acknowledging his guilt. The servant will see his physical progeny walking in his footsteps, and his days will be lengthened. These two blessings are not unrelated. No individual saint is guaranteed long days. But through his progeny, the servant perseveres and outlasts his persecutors. The might, the splendor, and the power of those who persecuted the Jew have long faded away. Well, America's still here, and they're still pretty mighty. When is this going to happen anyway? So right now, the righteous servant is not Isaiah 53. It's just going to be. Well, I got here first. His representation, his book, the title, Isaiah 53, In the Day of the Lord. He's got to have a description. Even your sages knew that. Your sages say. Moshiach, the anointed one of chapter 11, is described in chapter 53. What happened, Jews for Judaism? In particular, Michael Skolbeck, what happened? Our sages say, and sometimes we believe it and sometimes we don't. Sounds pretty hypocritical. I still don't know why they've done this, but this is ridiculous. And Toby Singer's worse, I give you that. I think Rashi did a better job, and that was pretty pathetic. Those who persecuted the Jew have long faded away, while the Jews still praise the same prayers and studies of the same text with freshness and vitality. Would you stop it? It is the same Jew that stirred the fanatical hatred of the church fathers, the mobs of crusaders. This was God's purpose. That's why he formed the Jewish people, to test the world. Would they... The inquisitors, the Ukrainian soldiers. Well, look what you're saying. And in the verses before, you're saying your suffering atoned and granted the Gentiles merit. Your God is coming with a vengeance, putting his wrath on them. wanting to break Christianity down from the cornerstones. It'll be a slow fall, but it's going to happen. Thus saith the Lord. It is the same Jew that's, fanatical Ukrainian soldiers of Shimnik, the Russian czars, the communists, and the Nazis. These and many like them have come and gone, but the Jew is still here. Well, the Nazis are definitely gone, primarily because of America. The greatest gift that God has granted his servant is the promise that God's own purpose in this world will be accomplished through him. The righteous of Israel are called God's armor bearers. Isaiah 52:11. Seven through 12. God allowed. That was for the exiles, and they built the second temple. God allowed them to join him in bringing his light to the world. Well, the world's in pretty sad shape, if you ask me. I don't think that light is very bright. I don't think it's going to make the world love you either. My commentary on Isaiah 53:10 again. But the Lord chose to crush him with disease, that if he made himself an offering for guilt, he might see offspring have long life. And that through, I understand, excuse me, and that through him the Lord's purpose might prosper. That's from the Jewish Publication Society, 1985 translation of Hebrew to English, Hebrew Bible. But the Lord chose to crush him by disease, midrash form, breaking down a verse in parts and making commentary on each part. Midrash, but the Lord chose to crush him by disease. Commentary. God's righteous servant will be familiar with disease, and his life crushed because of disease that he is afflicted with by the hand and power of God. That's the fire of refinement. You can find it in John, Job, and particularly Ezekiel. The key to understanding chapter 53. That if he made himself an offering for guilt, it's not a guilt offering, as Toby Singer says. It's just a bad translation on his part. It is an offer. And not only am I taking that based on the professional linguistic professionals they used for over 30 years, from scratch, the Leningrad Codex, the oldest Hebrew Bible we have, but I've already been through it, and this is what he taught me. This is all God's writing. You see me reading down here? That's God's writing. I do a lot of extra talking, and it's about the same stuff. But this is where I get it from. It's an offering of oneself to God for the guilt of sinning of the witnesses, the people in 1 through 6 of the Jewish people and all who come to believe, in return for possibly seeing his children, and possibly having long life as a covenant. The offering is only a test of his devotion to God, as was the binding of Isaac. When the test of devotion is set before the righteous servant, the new covenant has already arrived. Sin forgiveness from Jeremiah 31:31. And all the iniquities and sins of the Jewish people throughout the world are forgiven, and God remembers them no more. The guilt and emotion, and this is why they're suffering in the first 6 verses. He was wounded for our sins, our guilt was placed upon him, those people. Is from not following the laws and teachings of God by the Jewish people. God's forgiveness of the sins removes the guilt when they find out about it. And that's where we're having a problem. That's why the covenant doesn't truly go into effect until we get it published by a major Jewish publishing company that can market it throughout the world to reach all of the Jewish people. The test of devotion is revealed here, with Jeremiah 31 providing when God is coming with the new covenant, the time to come. It's here. The land blooms again. The old cities have been restored. Jerusalem rebuilt. Time for the new covenant. Well, God's got to be here. How did he deliver the first covenant? He was with Moses. He'd tell Moses what to say. Moses would say it. Same thing with me. I got two covenants, and he's telling me, having me. He dictated this. Say it here. As the only teacher he recognizes. He didn't recognize a single rabbi on this planet. And if they don't like that, they need to start teaching this book and bring Judaism into the modern era. It's correcting Judaism. It's not attacking it. For God. 'Tis day. With the new covenant, time to come that is manifested, Malachi 3, by the angel of the covenant. Behold, Malachi 3, I am sending my messenger to clear the way before me, and the Lord whom you seek shall come to his temple suddenly. As for the angel of the covenant that you desire, he is already coming. I know. Okay, now let's go on. One God of Israel, one angel of his presence, and the new covenant, and one man, the messenger of the new covenant, who is Elijah, but I am the righteous servant, and by passing the test of devotion, I became Moshe, prophet like Moses, and Elijah. One description, 4 righteous servants to come. But they're all here, and you're looking at all 4 of them. I've already handled the duties of the prophet like Moses. What's unique about Moses? God dictated the Torah to him. God dictated this book and another book, the life of the righteous servant, my life, so you can see how I fit Isaiah 53 when properly interpreted, which I do for the first time. Anybody's ever done it, because I'm the righteous servant. That's what he wanted. My righteous servant's going to be able to explain it because he's going to go through the fire of fire, which you don't have a clue about. And yet there it is in Jonah, Job, and in particular, inescapable, Ezekiel. The phrase, he is already coming, means he arrives before God, who comes to covenant with a Gentile. That would be me. And that's what the scripture provides. God comes from Edom, Gentile lands, and of the Jewish people, none are with him. Well, he's got to come with his prophet like Moses, or you won't know where he is. And then, of course, you have to believe in his prophet. God has to speak to the man. He must have a visible representation to speak and write his words, as Moses did to have his temple rebuilt for his return. God has to speak to the man to tell him that it was he that afflicted him with disease and crushed his life. And he did. He takes full credit for my cancer. Both of them. 3 of them. It must be a life-threatening disease, for God tells him that he might receive long life after choosing to crush him with disease. And in verse 12, the righteous servant is exposed to death. God also, which I guess Toby Singer just didn't get to verse 12, the murder of the Holocaust, or the guilt offering. The man, the righteous servant, is not an offering of anything. I made an offering to go through the fire of refinement, become the righteous servant, and make the many righteous. Receive as my portion the many, not lampshades with Jewish skin, and a multitude as my spoil. It's people. It's the many. It's the witnesses. God also has to prepare him to be a prophet. And I'm the only one slowing down the fact that if he came to Israel to go into his temple and it's not there, or they're not making plans to get it built, he might just leave. I mean, I don't know. He didn't tell me everything by any stretch of the imagination. But if he does, eventually utter destruction from the nations, the Middle East anyway, comes to the land of Israel. That's prophetic of God. And that should be taught long before you start teaching Messianic era and world exaltation, which could be making the Jewish people forget the phrases, never again, and never forget. Why remember the Holocaust? The world's about to love you. The world's going to love the Jewish people. You got any evidence to support that? Is it starting to happen somewhere? Have any kings bowed down to you? Are you in contact with the leaders of every nation of the world to say these things? Well, how do you know what they're going to do? That's not in the Hebrew Bible. How do you know what they're going to do? You say it like it's a given. Okay. I'm getting hungry. God is not asking the man to give up his life as a sacrifice. I don't think I finished that. God also has to prepare him to be a prophet as he did Ezekiel in the fire of refinement in the hand of God by his words and power, while teaching him the scripture to make the many righteous by his knowledge. God is not asking the man to give up his life as a sacrifice. That would be against his teachings to the Israelites through his prophet not to sacrifice their children. And the purpose of the man offering himself for guilt is to receive long life. The reality is there's no guilt or sin for the man to bear. The new covenant with sin forgiveness of all the Jewish people on earth has arrived before the offering is made, and no vicarious suffering for the sins of others has occurred. That is why it is only a test. God knows this before he covenants with the man. A covenant that if he makes himself an offering for guilt, God might not let him die of the disease. A test of devotion, trusting that God will not let you die. And that the fire of refinement won't be too brutal. It's brutal, people. You know, a young cadet going through boot camp to become a Green Beret, Marine, or Navy SEAL, that's nothing. God's boot camp for prophets is brutal. Just having God maltreat you, that's one of the 6 words. You know, wounded, punished, maltreated, crushed, bruised, chastised. All those words that are in Isaiah 53 are about the fire of refinement, which he doesn't tell you, but he does tell you in Ezekiel. And then he does all those horrible things to poor Ezekiel. Believe me, when I made the covenant, I didn't have a grasp on what the fire of refinement was really going to be like. I should have known in the first week when he said, Keith, you're going to find that your pain doesn't mean anything to me. And there's no low I won't go to elicit all of your emotions. You know, whatever you do, don't ever, if God comes to visit you, don't ever say, you wouldn't do that. He'll do it right on the spot, just to show you. He's God. That's what he tells me. I'm God. I'll do anything I want. God had Isaiah write Isaiah 53, just as he had Moses write the Torah, at his command and direction. The multiple purposes of how Isaiah 53 is written were no more possible for Isaiah to know than Moses could know of the multiple purposes of the Torah and the 613